Hi, I'm Linda Rost. I'm the 2020 Montana Teacher of the Year,
Hi, I'm Dylan Huisken. I'm the 2019 Montana Teacher of the Year.
and we're here to share some tips from Teachers of the Year on remote learning. So, first, we wanted to share that this new form of online or remote learning is going to be different, it's going to be challenging, and it's also going to be messy and more time consuming than learning in the classroom.
And it's important to remember that because of all these things, you should have grace for yourself, some self compassion. There's going to be missteps, and that can often be a reason why we don't feel like going forward because we know mistakes will be made. But this is definitely one of those trial and error situations, and always just trying to put our best foot forward.
So these are some considerations for timing when we're designing remote learning for our students. We need to remember that learning in this format may take students longer than it would in the classroom, and they may not be guided by their parents. They may not have parents in the home, especially for older students, who can help with their learning. The parents also may have multiple children and they may be managing many grade levels at once. So that's something we should take into consideration. And the children may also have other duties. Older children may be doing homeschooling with younger siblings, or they may have other jobs or tasks that they have to do. In rural communities, they may be participating in calving or other activities. So when we're designing learning, this is just a model or guide of how many hours different age groups should be spending on schoolwork. For K through 5, it should be around 1 to 2 hours, 6 through 8, 2 to 3 hours, and then for high school, probably about 30 minutes per subject, or maybe a total of 3 hours. And you can also collaborate with other teachers and have students be working on the same projects for different subject areas.
It's definitely important to not get in our heads a hard and fixed time with, I need it to be this long. Be flexible, be gracious, and it can be often about the process, not the product. So if it's just, find some time to read tonight, that's good.
So these are some considerations for different types of learners. If you have learners in your classroom who are proficient, some things that they might benefit from would be project-based learning. They do still need some consistency, but you can be a little bit looser with your frameworks. And they would also benefit from qualitative feedback over quantitative. And then for learners who are struggling, some of the things that they could benefit from would be flexible project-based learning. So maybe we could be flexible about the product, the end product of their learning and how they show it. Maybe they could choose between doing a PowerPoint, a vlog, having a discussion, maybe writing an essay or making an infographic. Those are some examples. They might benefit from more consistency than other students, and they would also benefit from qualitative feedback rather than quantitative.
And if you've spent all year building routines with your students who struggle, who really need routine, keep trying to use those in what ways you can online. So if there's a certain assignment structure that students do well with that doesn't need much explanation at this point in the year, rely on that. If you have PowerPoints that you use as models for your students, upload those. No need to reinvent the wheel here, especially with how hard you've worked to create routines for your students.
So another question we've been reflecting on is how do we serve all learners? And to do that, we need to focus on our instruction on meaningful lessons, and they also need to be relevant to what's happening in our world right now. We need to make sure that they're engaging and that we're also flexible in how our students can show their understanding. And they also need to be learner-centered.
uh, as teachers, we should try to help students process what's happening in ways that are appropriate. We don't want to push kids who have a lot of stressors and maybe need a break from all this um, stuff. But if you can attach a lesson to a direct correlation with what's happening with COVID-19, go for it. Make sure that your lessons can really get them to see this is why we have school. This is why we want you to be a scientific thinker. This is why we want you to think about history. It does really matter and helps you be a clearer communicator and thinker in this world of ours, a very rapidly changing world.
Right. So these are some considerations for what if your students are online. In Montana, we have a lot of diversity and we have a lot of students who don't have access to internet or computers. These are some things to ask yourself. How can we make sure that they're learning the same content or skills equitably as the students who are online? And what technology is available? So can we use the phone? Can we use the mail? Or other ways to communicate with our students and work with them? And then can we also make a plan with our parents and children? And we need to make sure that we're communicating with them at least weekly if we're not communicating online.
And just like you've worked hard to create routines, you've definitely worked hard to create relationships and rapport with both students and parents. So lean on those. If you have Class Dojo or the Remind app that you've been using, continue to use that. You know how to reach parents that don't maybe use those apps or don't have a smartphone. Continue to rely on that. But yeah, lean on the relationships you've worked so hard to build.
This is an example of some units that I worked on building for science or social studies. And so for my class, what I'm planning to do is each student will choose 5 different projects to work on throughout the quarter. And they get to pick one from each column. So in this first column, it'll be an elevator pitch to the world. What do they want to tell the world about, in our case, COVID-19? And since I teach science, we can focus a lot on that. And then this elevator pitch is a format they've already used. And then they get to pick one from the written column, one from video, one from graphic and visual, and a grab bag. And I also worked in a space here where they could choose their project. And then these asterisks indicate projects that offline students can do if they don't have access to the computer or internet. And then I would print articles and send them to them also if they needed those resources.
And for the history aspect of COVID-19, this is a good chance to help teach our students that they don't have to learn history from a book. This is a good chance for students to really learn about oral history, to interview or call people that they know in their family and ask them about changing, worrisome times that they lived through. I mean, we have a lot of expertise from people who lived through the Cold War. So this is a good time for students to reach out via phone and connect with family members over history.
Right. So some final thoughts. We need to make sure that when we're designing lessons and learning remotely, it does need to be equitable. We need to focus on learning and the students' growth. And we need to make a time to check in with students. And also, we're probably going to be designing some individualized lessons and helping students lead their own learning. In this time of uncertainty, make sure that you stay connected also with your colleagues and make sure that you look for the helpers. And we hope that was helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.